In today's geography lesson, we're looking at the inquiry process. We're looking at the geography inquiry process to support you to begin thinking about your non-examined assessment or your independent investigation. Your independent investigation is a piece of coursework that is 20% of the total A level. It will be, when you complete it, an essay of about 3,000 words in which you carry out a fieldwork project. It's marked according to a strict mark scheme, and there's a total of 60 marks available. And in today's lesson, what we're going to talk about is to set you up and prepare you for this. So today I'm going to be talking about what is geographical inquiry, or what is geography inquiry, what is the NEA, how is the NEA assessed, and how can I select a topic, or how can you select a topic? Because that's really important, that it's you doing this, not me doing this, not another one of your geography teachers doing this. So if we begin with thinking about geographical inquiry. Geographical inquiry is a geography experiment. Now, you may have remembered at GCSE, you went to perhaps Walton on the Naze, you carried out an investigation looking at longshore drift happening at different places along the coastline. That was a geographical inquiry. You were working out, did longshore drift happen more in one place than the other? That was a geographical inquiry, though, planned by your teachers. At A level, for your independent investigation, you need to plan that independently. So you need to start thinking about a topic, but your investigation needs to have all of the stages of a geographical investigation in. There needs to be an introduction, some planning, and in that you need to read some geographical literature, i.e. what have other experts said about this topic in the past, what other geography research has been done. You're not the first geographer, so you need to link to other geographers, others' research, other theory. You then need to carry out some field work. So you need to go out, you need to measure something, count something, and this could be carried out face to face, it could be carried out virtually, but you need to generate primary data. You then need to be able to process that data. The best geographical investigations will include a statistical analysis. You need to present that data, usually using graphs or maps, or the best investigations will include a variety of both. You then need to analyse that data, talking about what does that data mean? What is that data telling you? And finally, make some conclusions and evaluations. So overall, you found out this, and if you were to do it again, you would change that. And I'm now going to talk a bit more in detail about the NEA specifically. So what is the NEA? The NEA is a formal written report of about 3,000 words. Why are you doing this? Well, I guess the first reason you're doing it is because you have to get your A level. But actually, it's really, really important as geographers. It talks about the inquiry process. You learn about how to structure an inquiry. You get to practice and improve your extended writing. You'll be able to try an innovative investigation of ways of presenting data. There'll be opportunities for self-directed study. You'll be able to try out research techniques, and you'll be able to make links between the real world, what you've covered in geography lessons, and what's actually happening in reality. Now, OCR has produced a student's guide to the independent investigation, and I'll upload that on MS Teams so you can have a look at that. Now, your NEA must be based on a question defined by the learner individually. This comes from the exam board, and it must address aims, questions, or hypotheses relating to any part of the specification. So it has to be linked to the A-level geography specification. That means, for example, you can't do an investigation on rivers because rivers aren't part of the A-level geography specification. It has to incorporate data or evidence collected from the field, collected individually or in groups, but for most of you, this will be individual data. It needs to draw on your own data, and if relevant, secondary data as well, and I would recommend most of you use a mix of primary and secondary data. It requires you to independently contextualize, analyze, summarize the findings and the data. Now that means do the write-up. And also involve individual drawing on conclusions and communication by means of extended writing. So, how is this assessed? I'm going to talk about this briefly now, and this is something we will cover much more later on. So, it's a set marked out of 60, and you can see that there are 6 sections: planning, purpose, and introduction. This includes your use of geographical research, use of data, information on collection methods, and sampling framework. This is your methodology. Your data presentation techniques, your analysis and explanation, your conclusions, and your evaluation. And then there are 10 marks, 10 out of 60, for the overall quality. So does this represent a quality, well thought out piece of work? So how do you select a topic for your independent investigation? The first thing is it needs to be linked to the syllabus. So you can't do an investigation on rivers because that isn't part of the A-level geography syllabus. It also needs to be interesting. You're going to be spending a lot of time researching this, so it needs to be something that you find interesting and will enjoy researching. And finally, you need to be able to collect primary data. And that means you need to think about what you're collecting, where you're collecting it. So if you're doing a coast investigation, you need to be able to get independently to the coast. Or if you're doing a hazards investigation, you need to be able to get to an area that's suffering from volcanoes, earthquakes, or other tectonic hazards. This means for most of you, you'll do an investigation in relation to the migration topic, or for many of you, it will be the changing places topic. And when you're choosing a topic, you also need to choose a location. Now, your investigation needs to be at a manageable scale. So you can't do an investigation on London, for example. London's far too big of an area. It needs to be much more geographically contained. You might, for example, look at East Village. You might look at Stratford Old Town. You might compare East Village and Stratford Old Town. You might look at Hackney Wick. You might look at 2 different locations in Tower Hamlets. But it needs to be, as well as having a topic that's focused, your investigation needs to be geographically confined so it can be written about in depth in 3,000 words. Now, this word limit is an estimate. It's not going to be cut off at 3,000 words, but it should be around 3,000, 4,000 words rather than 20,000 words. Now, as you're trying to think about a topic, this can be quite difficult, particularly doing it remotely. So if you do have any questions, if you do want any ideas, please do email me. I'm happy to discuss with you topics and ideas. One of the key things that you need to do at the planning stage for your investigation is use literature. Now, this means going a bit beyond your textbook. Your textbook has lots of good information, but the level is quite superficial, and you need to dig a bit deeper. And when you're completing your planning form, you need to think about what literature you can use to support your investigation. And this will be a combination of literature that provides information about the local context. So that might be things like local newspapers. It could be things like technical reports. So for example, if you are looking at changing places, there's quite a lot of local government documentation around plans, the plan for Newham, in the case of East Village, the 2012 legacy reports, and also some geographical theory. And it's important to have some geographical theory. So for example, if you're investigating rebranding, you need to have an understanding of a clear definition of what is rebranding. You need to have different types of rebranding, and that should come ideally from academic literature. And that could either be textbooks that are more detailed than your textbook, so degree level first year undergraduate textbooks, or academic journal articles. A really good place to start with that is Google Scholar. That will help you. And again, with local newspapers, Google News. So 2 different versions of Google that filters out a lot of the things that you're not interested in. Google News for newspaper reports and articles, and Google Scholar for academic journals. Now, sometimes you'll find with academic journals, you can struggle to access them because they're behind a paywall. We don't expect you to pay £20, £30 for an article. If you're struggling, let me know, let one of your teachers know, and we'll be able to help you find some literature. But we expect you to do some start, and we can't do this for you. But if you're really struggling, either because it's behind a paywall or you're struggling to find particular topics, do send us an email and we'll work with you to help provide you some ideas.